Hi, everybody. This is Tin Kim Lamb, founder of Body Bookworms, and I'm super excited today to have Erin McLellan come and talk to us. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here because the Body Bookworms people have been recommending your books for ages and ages, and like we need a box with Erin's book. I'm glad that I could finally make it happen.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I do think that it's kind of like a match made in heaven in a lot of ways. It's like, there's lots of sex toys in my book, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and people having lots of fun using them. So before we get further in, I would love for you to introduce yourselves to our readers.
All right. Well, I'm Erin McLellan. I write queer contemporary romance and queer erotic romance. Um, I am originally from Oklahoma. I grew up in Oklahoma and I've lived in Oklahoma and Texas, but now I live in Alaska, which is really fun and kind of crazy, but we really enjoy it. And I'm trying to think. I don't know. I used to be a public librarian, and so reading and books and things like that are kind of in my DNA and something that's really important to me. And yeah, I'm excited to be here because that's about it. I just had a baby. That's about that's the only other
Yes,
exciting thing.
congratulations. I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me instead of enjoying your baby moon, I guess, because
Yeah,
I know your baby's pretty new, so
yeah, he's
lots of
little.
fun there. Yeah. That's funny. There's so many people who are writers and authors who were librarians or are still librarians, so we can't keep away.
Yeah, it's like librarians and lawyers, I feel like, are
Yeah,
the
lawyers.
two
I'm
really common.
neither, but I think like in another life, I would have enjoyed being a librarian.
It was a fun job. I was a public librarian down in Houston, Texas, and it's kind of it can be an intense job too, but it's a really fun one.
Yeah, I have friends who are librarians, and they tell me the most interesting stories that are not appropriate for this call.
Yes, you'll have a lot of those if you work in a public library, that's for sure.
Yeah, but we're here to talk about you and your books instead of library. Um, so the book we featured in our summer box, which is the theme was Summer Fling, is Bottle Rocket, which is set around Independence Day, but not necessarily like a Fourth of July uh, story, right?
Right. Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's kind of set over 4th of July weekend or, the like that holiday. But I wouldn't call it like patriotic or, they're not like into like woo woo Independence Day. It just kind of happens to fall as the setting. And so there's some things that you kind of associate with 4th of July or Independence Day, like firework stands, barbecues. I really tried to focus more on like the summery aspect and the kind of like communal coming together for parties type of aspect of 4th of July as opposed to the patriotism aspect of 4th of July.
Yeah, and I think all those settings within the that a celebration weekend gave the characters a lot of opportunity to flirt and have sex.
Yeah.
And your other books are set around different holidays too, right? Do you want to tell us more about those?
Sure. So the series is called the So Over the Holidays series. The first book is called Stocking Stuffers. It's a queer male-female romance. The heroine is bisexual, and she's a sex toy seller that basically gets snowed in at this Christmas-themed like inn or a bed and breakfast, and she hates Christmas. The hero loves Christmas. He's also snowed in there. But she has all these sex toys basically, and they just kind of have fun the whole time that they're snowed in. And my goal of all the books in this series really is to write these really sexy erotic romances. Oh, hold on, I've got a thing that just popped up. Okay, sorry. These really sexy romances that are short and fluffy and funny. I really wanted erotic romance that was kind of silly and fluffy, really. And so my goal with Stocking Stuffers was to write an erotic romance that was kind of like a Hallmark Christmas movie that had that kind of sweetness, But
all
was
the sex
actually
that we want, right?
right, yeah. And so that was my goal with stocking stuffers. And I've really tried to follow that through with all the other holidays that I've hit. So stocking stuffers is first, and you can read them in any order, but stocking stuffers is first. It's a male female romance. The second one is Candy Hearts, and it's a male male romance that's set around Valentine's Day. That kind of has this big house party Valentine's Day feel. But the two heroes basically show up accidentally early to the house party, and there's no electricity in the house. And they kind of decide to be secret Valentines. And that one's really fun. One of the heroes is a mechanic who really likes to wear lingerie. There's lots of sex toys in that one too. And kind of they give themselves this excuse to be like as sweet and romantic as possible because they're Valentines for the weekend. Basically, there's not that pressure of an extended relationship. But of course, that is not what happens,
It
right?
never goes that way, right?
And then the third book is Bottle Rocket. It's a male-female romance, and it's the hero in that one is bisexual. And yeah, it's a second chance romance set around kind of 4th of July weekend. She is a divorcee who is kind of wanting to figure herself out. You know, she wants to find her independence and find herself after getting out of this bad relationship. And this person that she used to date in high school comes back into her life, and she's basically like, this is my sex checklist that I want to do while you're here. And they do it, you know. And he's an erotic artist, and so there's kind of that aspect too, which is really fun. And then the fourth book in the series is Party Favors. It's an FF romance set around New Year's Eve, and it's basically two online best friends who have never met in person. And then they decide to meet for this New Year's Eve party, kind of at this fancy resort. And of course, there's only one bed in the little cabin that they end up renting. And that one's really fun too, I think.
It's like all my different catnips in your books. I just love all the tropes you have in there.
Yeah,
Um,
I like using tropes. I know some people like think it's kind of cheating or whatever, but it's just shorthand, right? For what people will like in romance, and you try to kind of make them your own.
right, because everybody has their own voice and style of writing, and then you add your own twist to it. That's what makes the trope so fun.
Right.
So back to Bottle Rocket, and those of you who haven't read any of Erin's books or you got the first one through this box, you can definitely read Bottle Rocket on its own because I haven't read the other ones yet. There's mentions of other characters from previous books in it, but I don't think there's nothing spoilery in them.
No, I mean, you might figure out who's together. You know, you might figure out that the hero and heroine
we
from the
would know that anyway, right? From
right,
reading the book descriptions.
right, yeah,
I love that Rosie is exploring herself. You know, like she isn't young, like she's not young. She's not like in her 20s, discovering herself. But it's so relatable that she has tried all these different hobbies and she's not great at them. Because I have like a whole like closet full of craft supplies of things I want to try, and then they just I forget about them or move on to the next thing.
Oh yeah, that was me during the pandemic, right? Where I was like, I'm stuck at home and I'm bored, so I'm going to get into calligraphy or or whatever.
Oh,
And then I do it like one time, and I'm like, okay, that was enough of that. I think that that's something, especially when people are career focused and they have relationships that take up a lot of their time and like mental energy. I don't think you necessarily do end up with a lot of hobbies. Like when I think about my hobbies, I'm like, I watch a lot of TV and I read books. Those are my hobbies. And I think that she really wanted to figure out something that was hers, that was just for her. And I find that really relatable as somebody that's in my 30s and, and kind of has life swirling around me. So.
yeah. So the others, I love that Rosie also created the sex list. So I have an article on the Body Bookworms website, and it's how to create your own sex bucket list, right? So because it just makes it more fun and it kind of helps you get out of a rut. And I think what appealed to me about this book is that the dynamics between the two characters are very different than what you would see like normally see in romances. Like she's the one in charge. She's the one and he likes it that she's in charge. Can you just talk more about what inspired you to create this dynamic, and why it worked for you?
Yeah, I had, I've only written two at that point. I had only written two romances where that were not male male. So they were kind of my first. She's really my second heroine to write, I guess, to put it that way. Is that I kind of started a male male romance and then wanted to be able to write whatever I wanted, and so I kind of transferred over to writing MF and FF as well. And it really appeals to me to kind of write the brash heroine, the heroine that is knows who she is, even though Rosie really doesn't know who she is. That's kind of the storyline. But in the first book, Sasha, who's the heroine, really knows who she is and has a good sense of self in a lot of ways. And so it really appealed to me with Rosie, the heroine of Bottle Rocket, to kind of write somebody who was figuring herself out. But she also has a very specific personality. she's the oldest child, and I think kind of has oldest child syndrome in a lot of ways. And she likes to be in control. She's a teacher, so she's very kind of regimented. And so I think it went along with her personality, that kind of being in control of those situations. But whenever I think about why I wanted to write it, I think I wanted to write a femdom romance. I wanted to write a romance that had pegging in it. And so it just kind of made sense. So it's kind of like these things that I wanted to write, and then I kind of shoehorned them into that character in a lot of ways, which is maybe not the way shouldn't admit that, but that is kind of how that came about. And I felt like it matched her personality really well. And it kind of helped create the type of character that I like to write, and the type of woman that I like to write, who's kind of in control, but also has these vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you're writing about femdom, but it's a light. It's not like BDSM oriented, like you see. So it's just like nice look into a different lifestyle.
Yeah, I like to kind of call it cozy kink. It's like kink in their bedroom. It's not kind of kink in the dungeon. I think that there's definitely, I like reading romances that do have the BDSM and, in the clubs and stuff like that, but that doesn't really match my writing style very well. And so, if I'm wanting to write these things, I have to make it make sense within what I'm really able to write. And that is like having, these kinky encounters in the apartment, or wherever they are. And so I like to call it kind of cozy kink. It's not heavy BDSM, but it is kinky.
Yeah. I think it's relatable, especially for someone who's interested in that lifestyle. The scenes in the book are definitely like situations that they can recreate, right? They can do
Right.
it
Yeah.
at the convention, they can do it at home, or in a in an RV.
Right. Yeah. And an Airstream trailer, which is where the hero lives. There is a sex scene in a fireworks stand, which might be a little bit harder to recreate, but everything else kind of takes place at homes.
I like that scene. That scene was really fun.
Yeah. I grew up working in a fireworks stand, and so I knew I wanted to have a fireworks stand scene whenever I started writing the book. That was kind of one of the first scenes that I wrote, actually. And so I loved working at the fireworks stand growing up.
See, I grew up in a small town in Louisiana, and we had fireworks stands, and that's every summer you would go and buy
Yeah.
these big things of explosives.
Yeah, that's how it was in Oklahoma too, right? It's like that type of state. They've got the fireworks stands everywhere.
Yeah, they still do it. When my kids used to go home and visit, before the pandemic, they would go to visit my family every summer, and my dad always like did a stop and let them pick out all kinds of stuff. I'm like, well, I guess I didn't die doing this, so
Yeah, I know.
I'll be fine. Uh, okay, so we already know what your favorite tropes were because you've included them in the books in this series. Um, so I want to talk about. We're talking about the pegging, and I think that there is not enough romance books that include pegging. So I'm really happy for that, and which is one of the reasons I included the the silicone this guy here in the box. Um, and so, like, what do you? So, out of the things in the box, because I know, thank you so much for doing the unboxing. Like,
Oh
what
yeah, it was really fun.
what do you think was worked the best, like in your opinion, with the book?
Oh, well, I definitely think the dildo does. Like when I was reading the description and it says it's harness compatible, I was like, oh, well, that, they use a dildo and a harness in the book because there is pegging. The like edible little, what were they called? The gel packs, kind of.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, Sizzlets.
yes,
They're warming jet, like lickables.
right. And I thought that was kind of fun because, we've talked about how Rosie's really looking for a hobby and looking for this thing that she kind of enjoys doing. And she discovers making jam, which is really funny because I don't like jam or jelly. Like I won't eat that. And so it's kind of, I had my editor, I had to ask her lots of questions because she makes jam and she had to really help me with those scenes. But I do think that like those, when I saw them, I just thought that was such a cute idea to include because they're kind of jam flavored or jelly flavored. And I thought it went really well with the book and kind of how she ends up finding herself in this thing that she really likes to do.
I just thought it was a good contrast because making jam is so wholesome.
Yeah. That's kind of whenever, because I was trying to think of things that you can really only do in the summer. And I remember I was talking to one of my writer friends, her name's Allison Temple, and she makes jam and stuff during the summer. And that was one of the things that she brought up is going to the farmers markets and getting fresh fruit and things like that. And I thought, well, that would be fun to include. And then it was like a light bulb for me at that point. That could be the thing that she really discovers that she likes to make. And it is kind of fun, that contrast of, being this, like, I think of it as kind of like there's maybe a stereotype about it being like little Betty homemaker makes jam. But she's this, femme she's really discovering these things about herself sexually that she likes. And then she's making jam. And I thought the contrast was fun.
I think that skills like jam making and sewing, like what we associate with women's domestic labor, are making a comeback because people want to be self sufficient, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot of, my sister is a quilter, she does long arm quilting. And it's such an art, really. It's not just something that I think of like as arts and crafts. I think of it as like she's creating art when she does it. And I know that making jam maybe isn't art, but it's kind of this type of artistry in a way. And so I do think it's these things that have been traditionally female tasks or female hobbies. I kind of like to, I do think that they're making a comeback, and I think that people are starting to appreciate them for what they are, as opposed to pushing them in this corner as this thing that only women enjoy, or that it's less than. And romance is kind of the same way, right? Where it's like there's this stereotype about romance.
yeah, and it's funny because my husband reads romance sometimes too, and people are so surprised. But like when we started dating, like rom coms were huge. That's what we movies we went to go see, and basically like a lot of romances are rom coms in a book, right? Except
Right.
with sex because that's what I like. Um, but I don't understand why people think that romance should only be for women because like who doesn't want to be in touch with their feelings and read about people falling in love.
Right. And I definitely think, when you're thinking about kind of the queer romance realm too, like there's a lot of men that are writing romance and writing really, really good romance. And so I do think that that's kind of a wrong assumption that it's only for women, because not only is it not only for women, it's not just women that are writing it. There's this wide realm of authors who are writing romance who are not just cis women. And so
That's a
it's
good
a
point.
really exciting time to be in romance right now.
It is, and that means my like to be read pile keeps list keeps growing longer and longer. So let's see. What do you have coming up? I know you're focusing on being a mother right now, but do you have what's your next project that you're working on? Can you share anything about it?
Yeah, I'm kind of in maternity leave mode a little bit, but The last book that I wrote was called Perfect Matcha. And it was part of this multi-author series that's kind of based around this coffee shop. Everybody wrote books that were related to the coffee shop. And it's a male-male romance. And in that book, I think sometimes this happens with authors where you write a side character that kind of takes on a life of their own. And in that book, because this is kind of how I write all my books, one of the characters works at a sex toy shop. And the owner of that sex toy shop, his name is Hawk Howard, which I think is a funny name. I sometimes like to pick like funny romancy names that feel like you would only see in a romance novel. But his name is Hawk Howard. And he owns the sex toy shop, and he was one of those side characters that kind of took on a life of his own. And I had a lot of readers that kept asking, are you going to write his story? Are you going to write his story? And I decided that he was really a perfect character to kind of marry that universe, the Perfect Matcha universe, with the So Over the Holidays universe, because they're both in this kind of sex toy industry. And so what I'm working on right now, and I don't know if it'll come out this year, that's my hope, but I can tell you since my son has been born, I've hardly written anything. So who knows when that will happen. But it's I'm writing it as a serial, basically, and it's him, and he goes to essentially a world adult novelty convention, and there he meets another person, but all of the side characters are kind of from the So Over the Holiday books. So it's very kind of cross universe. And so that's what I've got going on right now. And I'm hoping to release that this year kind of in serial format. And yeah, and so but the person that he meets, his name is Zane. And they basically like sleeping with multiple people, and so you're not only seeing some of the characters from So Over the Holidays, but there's like sex scenes with characters from the So Over the Holiday books.
Oh, that sounds really fun.
It's gonna be probably like the smuttiest thing I've ever written. There's not a lot of plot. It's basically like each part is a sex scene, and it's just been really fun. What I've written 2 parts so far, and they've been really fun to write.
Okay, everybody, so you have approximately 7 or 8 months to read the rest of the EMU, the Erin McLellan universe, and get to know all the characters in your new book.
Yeah. Right now, kind of the working title that I've got for that is Hawk on Holiday, because he's on holiday to go to this convention, but also it kind of ties in the So Over the Holidays books.
So last week I actually attended a virtual sex toy convention / trade show, and I haven't been able to attend in person before, but I can only imagine like how fun it would be. Like I had a lot of meetings and people would show me all their new toys and stuff. Like, I'm a kid in the candy shop.
Yeah, well, I might have to, because I've never been to one. I'm just kind of guessing, and I'm trying to do research and stuff about them and look at pictures of past conventions and stuff. But I might have to ask you, since you've at least attended something virtual. I might have to email you questions.
Yeah, so I've been to one that was geared towards consumers, in person, and I mean it was so much fun. But I'm like, the one that I went to last week is called the initials are ANME, and it's huge. I guess like a big showroom floor and everything. So I'm hoping next year we'll have it in person, because like it's one thing to look at toys via a camera, but like to actually like turn them on and see how they feel.
Yeah.
No,
that sounds awesome. That's one of the conventions I've read about. It's one of the big ones, I think. I recognize the acronym at least.
Yeah, it's huge. So definitely, I'd be happy to help you with research.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything else that you want to share with us, or you want to encourage readers to pick up and read?
Well, I mean, definitely I would love it if people would read the So Over the Holiday books. If they like Bottle Rocket, I think they would like the other books in that series. And I also think that they would like Perfect Matcha, which I got this is my proof copy, so it's got this ugly thing on it, but this is what the cover looks like, Perfect Matcha. And I think of my books, like if you like Bottle Rocket, those would be kind of the read-alikes of my own. Other authors that I would suggest, I think if you like my books, you might like Katrina Jackson. You might like, oh gosh, I've just forgotten her name. She always has sex toys in her books.
Elia Winters?
Yes, Elliot Winters.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Gosh, that I feel really silly.
Feature her book in the past. Yeah, I like her books too.
Yeah, I think she's a wonderful author. And so I think, I really like Adriana Herrera.
Got sex toys in
She's
those
got some
too.
sex toys in her books.
Yep.
Right. I feel like I'm just listing off ones that you've done before, probably.
But
But
our
yeah,
readers, so we haven't read all of them, and you and those other readers have writers have extensive backlists, so they have a lot of catching up to do.
yeah. And if you kind of like angstier books, I do have some angstier male romances if you go further back in my backlist. If you want something that's a little different, like I said, I'm from Oklahoma, have quite a bit of experience with tornadoes and things like that. And if you want a storm chaser book, I have a book about 2 storm chasers. It's called Natural Disaster.
Oh my gosh, I love natural disaster movies, so I'm gonna have to look that one up.
You should look it up. The tagline that I've used for it is that it's like Twister but gay.
Yes.
So, and that one was really fun. I had to do a lot of research just because I kind of have a knowledge about tornadoes as somebody that's like watching the TV when there's tornadoes or has to shelter in place when there's tornadoes or who has lost a house in a tornado, but not like as a meteorologist. And so I had to do lots of weather research, and it was really fun. And it's my only book that has a little dictionary at the front or a glossary at the front. So I felt really important doing a little glossary. It was fun. And so if that sounds like it would be up your alley, that's my book that's the most unusual, kind of outside the realm of my others.
Well, there you have it, everybody. So definitely catch up on the EMU so you can read her serial with Hawk Howard. I keep wanting to say Hawkeye, like
it's Hawk Howard.
Thank you so much for taking time away from your maternity leave to chat with me and be involved in this box. I'm so happy with how everything turned out, and I'm glad you are too.
Yeah, it was so fun. I'm so glad that we were able to do this.